Hi everybody and welcome to today's Crowdfunding for Sport webinar, where we'll be looking at the basics of crowdfunding and the benefits for your club and your sports organisation. We've also teamed up with Sport England and we'll be looking at the extra funding opportunities that are available to you whilst crowdfunding via our platform. So Nadine from Sport England will come and talk you through those two different funding pots available from themselves. We'll also look at the ins and outs of running a successful crowdfunding project, and we've been lucky enough to be joined as well by a successful project owner who's going to talk you through crowdfunding from the project owner's perspective. So what they found easy, what they found difficult, some advice and hints and tips for you starting your crowdfunding journey as well. Before we get started, there's just a few bits of housekeeping to go through. I'm actually working from the Crowdfunder offices today, which is a nice change, but it is a shared office, so there still might be some unexpected interruptions. So please do bear with me if you hear any background noise. If you find that there's any issue with your internet connection, please do just press the refresh button just up in your browser there, and you should come straight back into the live room. We've allowed 60 minutes for this session, so we've got an hour, which will give us enough time to power through all of the information about crowdfunding, but also give us some time to answer any of the questions that you may have. So we've allocated a Q&A section at the end, but we'll also try and answer any questions that crop up throughout the course of the session. Do feel free to pop questions into the chat box as and when throughout the session, and we'll try and cover as many of those as we can today. Okay, so let's get started. First and foremost, if I could please introduce Nadine to come and have a little chat about the funds available. Hi Nadine, are you there?
Hi Zoe, hi everyone.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Amazing. So there's two funds, isn't there, available at the moment from Sport England in terms of extra funding. Would you be able to just talk us through what's on offer, please?
Absolutely. So as you said, we've got two funds. Our first is our 7.5 million Active Together Fund. And this was launched back in May 2020 in response to the COVID pandemic. And the key focus of this fund is recovery, reinvention, and building resilience. So typical projects could cover essential maintenance, general works, or coping with the increased demand for activity following the pandemic. And more so now, the current cost of living and energy crises. Through Active Together, we have supported over 600 successful campaigns, and with plenty of budget left, we're looking for even more clubs and organisations to support. So do get those applications in if you're eligible. Our second fund is our 7 million Places and Spaces Fund. Now, this is a capital fund, and the key focus of this fund is increasing participation, diversifying audiences, and bringing people together, all in the name of the Commonwealth Games that were held in the summer. So typical projects under Places and Spaces could cover creating a welcoming and accessible space, enhancing or improving existing facilities, or providing opportunities for people in your local community to get active. With both of our funds, they're available across England with up to 50% of match funding available to a maximum value of £10,000. We appreciate that for many people, this is probably a new experience. You've never done crowdfunding before. So with Crowdfunder, we have built up a wealth of resource and there's plenty of support available. So do tap into this if you can. I'll hand back over to you, Zoe, to discuss things in a bit more detail.
Thanks, Nadine. Are you happy to hang on for the Q&A session at the end in case anyone has any questions about the funds itself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing, thank you. I just actually shared a couple of links into the chat box there. That's the extra funding pages for both of those funds that Nadine has mentioned, so the Active Together Fund and the Places and Spaces Fund. Is this available for Wales? That's one of the questions. Well, actually, with these particular funds, we do have Sport Wales as well that we partner with, but it's definitely, that's a question for Nadine to kind of loop back through. But I'm going to share as well the link, here we go, for our general extra funding page. So we've teamed up with Sport Wales and Sport Northern Ireland. So you can go and take a look at all of the additional funds that we have available, potentially for your eligible project, on our main extra funding page as well. So just to talk you through a little bit about how extra funding works when you're crowdfunding for your project or your idea, you would need to set up and sign in to our crowdfunding website. So you would set up an account. You would then go on to create a page. By doing this, you're going to let us know whereabouts in the country you are. So you need to tell us your postcode. Make sure that you do input that in the early stages of putting your page together. Without that, we won't be able to team you up with any regional partners that might be local authorities, for example, on top of these national funds that we have available. Make sure that you also tick the box when prompted to allow us to share your details, so your page details and your project details, with our funding partners. The way in which especially our sports partners work is they will review your application as well as your page and the content that you've already created on there. So make sure that you're allowing us to share that information with them. Also, let us know who's going to benefit from your project. So the demographic of people that you'll be working with, and also those deliverables. So what are going to be the possible outcomes from the delivery of your project? Will you be increasing mental well-being or tackling isolation? Will you be bringing people back to sport, increasing physical activity? All of these things I imagine your clubs are going to be able to do through the projects that you have in mind. So do think on a broad spectrum what the trickle-down effect is going to be of the benefits to your community of being able to roll out this project idea. Once you've completed that information, you'll then be matched with our funding partners, and you will go on to put in applications via your crowdfunding page to any and every of those funding partners that you've been matched with that you think you would be a good fit and you would be eligible for. There is no upper limit as to the different funding partners you can work with and be approved by. So make sure if there's multiple funding pots that you've been approved for, pop in all of those applications. And it might just open up a lovely conversation about how many of our partners want to get behind you, including obviously those Sport England partners too. So when it comes to actually securing that extra funding, what you would need to do is obviously put in those applications. Once you've been approved and the pledge has been determined, so our partners will get in contact with you and let you know how much they'd be willing to pledge towards your project. That's always going to be a maximum of 50% of your initial target. And in this instance, with the Sport England pots of money, it would be up to £10,000 would be the maximum pledge as well. So once you've had that approval in place, you would then go on to launch your crowdfunder. So you'd go live with your project and you'd start crowdfunding from those around you. You'd be tasked to reach 25% of your initial target yourself from your crowd. So that's members of your community, members of your network. Once you've reached that 25% of your initial target, you will see that the extra funding from Sport England will drop onto your project page. You'll see your target raise increase dramatically, because that could be up to £10,000. And you'll also see that they become a supporter on your page as well. So it's very visible to everybody viewing your page that you've had this money from Sport England. It's a really wonderful catalyst to then go back out to your community, continue crowdfunding until you reach 100% of your target. When you've reached 100%, you have secured all of the money raised, including that extra funding. Be mindful of the fact that you do need to reach 100% of your overall target in order to secure those extra funding pledges from Sport England. There are a few added bits of pledge criteria as well to bear in mind. You do need to raise the 25% of your initial target yourselves in the first instance, but you also need to raise that by a set amount of required supporters. Now, these supporters are what we refer to as unique or qualifying pledges. To be a unique supporter, somebody needs to have an individual email address and an individual banking footprint. So if you have, for example, a couple who might have a shared bank account and they both pledge onto your crowdfunder, because the banking footprint is the same, it would only have a class as one unique supporter. So do be sure to go out there and bring in lots of different individual supporters as much as you can, because that will really help you get to that first milestone to release the extra funding. Now, for many of you here, you might not have an idea of what crowdfunding is. It might be something that you've heard about. Maybe a club locally has run a successful crowdfunder, but I just want to give you a bit of an overview of what crowdfunding is and how it can benefit your club. So we at Crowdfunder UK are the country's leading rewards-based crowdfunding platform. That's kind of our standout, as opposed to your general fundraising platforms such as Just Giving that you might be more familiar with. Rewards can work incredibly well because it allows you as project owners to offer a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution from your supporters. You're in a really brilliant position when you are crowdfunding for sports because you already have lots of things that you can utilize as rewards. It might be that you're going to offer coaching sessions or trials of a particular sport at your facilities. You might want to host events, for example. The best thing to do, if you can, as well, is to reach out to those around you and see if they can offer any rewards. So those rewards become things that people will claim and they will pay for via your crowdfunding page. They can be priced at anything from a few pounds up to a few hundred to a few thousand if you're incorporating things like sponsorship for your local business community, for example. You might be wanting to redo the facilities, the changing facilities at your club. And actually, if you have some sponsorship rewards on there, you might decide that you are happy to put the logos or the branding of some of the local businesses onto the walls or onto the banners around the pitch by way of a thank you if they claim that reward on your page. Just a bit of an overview of ourselves as a company. Let me move myself out of the way a little bit. To date, so Crowdfunder UK has been up and running for almost 10 years now. It'll be 10 years next year. And to date, we have helped projects raise over £274 million. So huge amounts of money that have been raised to be able to help different projects from all walks of life, from sports clubs through to community organisations, charities, profit-making businesses, startups, you name it, the chances are somebody's crowdfunded for it. But we know that sports specifically crowdfunds really, really well. And there are certain reasons for that I'll go over in the next few slides. We also see that there are around 300 projects added daily to our site. So again, lots of inspiration to be had there. If you want to take a look at what's come before you, it's a really good place to start, to have a look at the website and see what kind of projects that are similar to yours have managed to successfully crowdfund, and try and replicate some of the things that resonate with you as well as a reader and as a potential supporter. So with sports clubs specifically, you already have a really, really captive audience. You have club members, you have team members, you have those around you within the community that may well already be using your facilities. Chances are you have a following, especially if you are part of a local team sport where you have a home ground and people come and visit you, make use of the facilities, as I mentioned. So you're going to have a captive audience that you can utilize for crowdfunding. Normally, sports clubs are like the hub and the epicenter of the local community. So make sure that you are really shouting about that when you are running your crowdfunder and putting your page together. You want to let those people know, reading your page, just how embedded you are within the community and why it's important that that community get behind you in order to make your project happen. Another great thing that works in your favor as well is just how competitive sports clubs can be with rival sports clubs, but also within the team members themselves. And we also give you the option and the ability to run something we call a multiplier, which I'll go over in a little bit more detail. But essentially, it can put the fundraising into the hands of your club members and your local community. You can get them fundraising on your behalf. You might even want to set a challenge where you're kind of pitting one team against the other within the club to see who can raise the most amount of money. It's a really exciting way to give ownership to those around you to help you with the financial raise, especially at the moment where people might not necessarily have a lot of disposable income. It's a lovely way for them to support you and actually tap into their own networks, as is offering a reward as well, if that's possible for them to do. So there are two main reasons why people pledge on crowdfunders. You may well have supported a crowdfunder yourself, and I think you'll probably resonate with one of these, if not both, hopefully. So they either really believe in your idea and want to see it happen. So those are going to be especially people who already have links with your club and your sports organisation, members of the community who can really see the value in what you're doing and how your project is going to impact them on a personal level. But then you'll also have people potentially within the wider community who might not have that affiliation with the club itself, that are interested in the rewards that you have on offer, that would like to support you financially, but actually getting something back that's of use to them by way of a reward is really going to incentivize their giving. So what we encourage you to do is really hit that sweet spot in the middle where you're engaging with your audience and you're really tapping in and resonating with them when it comes to the support for the idea itself, but also having really lovely rewards on offer, which again have a wide mass appeal, not just for your club members, but for the wider community as well. We ask you to create a project page. This is something that we always recommend that you do before you put in your applications. Get your page to a stage where you're happy with it and you feel that it does really tell your story in an engaging way. Lots of visuals. Use the headings that we already have in there for you if you wish. We have a template specifically for sports clubs because we know what works. All you need to do is kind of replicate the formula and you'll be onto a winner when it comes to creating an engaging page. So we have set headings in there for you. By all means, edit those and change them if you so wish to make them more applicable to your particular organisation. But you do need to really follow that format and make sure that you are having bold headings to break up the paragraphs, have nice, concise information, as detailed as you can be, but keep it short and snappy so people who are short on time can pick out any of those key bits of information without having to read huge, great big paragraphs of text. It can feel quite overwhelming for a reader to be presented with just a huge body of text. Break that up with headings, with images, wherever you can, short videos even if you have the capability. If you can use imagery of people, that's brilliant. If you can have images of your relevance to the community, so maybe you've had engagement days at the club, maybe you've got team photos that you can put up there, action shots are great as well. And if you can, always try and include a video at the top of the page. It only needs to be 1.5 to 2 minutes long at the most. Again, short and snappy is the best way forward. It's really a shop window, this page, into the organisation itself and what you're trying to achieve. So if you imagine for a moment scrolling through social media and what hooks you in, what are you going to click on? Chances are it's a video or an image as opposed to a big long text post. This is really the world in which we live in now. People are short on time. They want to absorb as much of that relevant information in as short a time as possible. And the way that you do that is by creating a short video to tell people who you are as an organisation, why you're crowdfunding, what you're crowdfunding for, and how people can help you. So that's going to be sharing your project, donating if they can, claiming those rewards, coming along to those events that you might be running as well. So make sure that you're keeping it short and snappy, but full of content and on location if you can as well. Be at the club, be at the home game, have people in the background that are going to benefit from your project. It doesn't have to be highly edited. It doesn't have to be professionally shot. Try and script it if you can, so you know you get all of your content that you intended to across to your viewer, but you can use many free software packages to edit it. You do need to upload it via either Vimeo or YouTube, which again is free and very user-friendly to do. There are lots of different guides on how you can do that if you're not particularly tech savvy, but maybe see if you can reach out to members of your team or club that can help support you in doing things like this as well. It's always great to have a team of people around you to help you pull the page together and also to help you promote it. I mentioned rewards there. Do get creative and inventive with rewards that you can offer. So we have two categories of rewards really that we refer to. So one is internal rewards. So that would be things that you're offering that really you've got your club members in mind. So that might be enhanced coaching sessions, one-to-one sessions. It might be that you've got use of the facilities for a set rate, which is discounted to what it normally would be. But then also think about the wider community, get out there and speak to people. You're all probably quite familiar with, you know, holding and hosting a raffle maybe at the club in years gone by. You might have gone around to the high street shops and said, you know, is there anything you could offer or put up so that we can put it into our raffle, which we're going to be holding? It's a similar principle, but instead of having an in-person raffle, you're going to put these wonderful gifted things that might be high street vouchers. It might be things like online services, for example, like accounting services or yoga or piano lessons from members of the community. Think inventively about what you can offer, think out of the box, but they go onto your page and people claim on those as opposed to turning up at your venue and doing an in-person raffle. So it's a similar principle, but you're putting that online. You want to get those rewards gifted to you wherever possible. The less financial outlay you can have creating those rewards and delivering those rewards, the better, really. Okay, so I mentioned about the multiplier function. This is a really lovely example of a successful multiplier project. It's the Brixton BMX Club. They actually ran a successful crowdfunder last year, I believe it was now. But they had, as you can see, 23 fundraisers. So they opted to become a multiplier, and on their page, they would have a little button that would say start fundraising. So anybody that wanted to could come along, click on that start fundraising button and set up their own individual pages. And you can see just a few of those here on the right-hand side. So a couple of the individual fundraisers. All of those individual fundraisers that have been set up, all of their supporter numbers and all of the money raised will automatically filter onto your main project page. So it can be a massive help when it comes to things like meeting the pledge criteria for extra funding, because you're going to generate a higher supporter number amount and a higher amount raised towards that initial 25%. If you have the capacity to, it's a great way to set a fundraising challenge. And that's what these guys actually did. They did laps of the track, a set amount of laps, and everybody took on the challenge that got involved and they raised money from their own networks. It's a brilliant way to tap into networks that you might not necessarily be able to access yourself as a club, especially if you've got a youth team, for example, and they might be able to reach out to their schools or colleges. Local community groups that use your facilities might want to get involved as well. So definitely do consider becoming a multiplier crowdfunder. It works incredibly well for sports. You're all very naturally competitive, and that can work in your favour when it comes to fundraising, especially if you incentivize it. Maybe you've got a prize for the top fundraiser in your club, for example. We offer an incredible amount of support to enable you to be a successful crowdfunder. We have things such as our Learn platform. So it's an online learning resource. It's very user-friendly. We've got one specifically for sports, so we can make sure that you're being fed the correct information that will enable you to crowdfund successfully. It's 4 separate modules. So you have an introduction to crowdfunding, which just goes over the basics that we're covering today in more detail. And then you've got the planning, creating, and running your live crowdfunder. It's definitely worth doing, not only yourself, if anybody else is going to get involved in running the crowdfunder as well. I highly recommend that you share this Learn platform with those around you. Do it in your own time. You can come back to it once you've logged in. You can sign out and in and out as you wish, but it really is the foundations for making sure that you have everything you need to run that successful crowdfunder. Okay, so that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour when it comes to crowdfunding itself. I'd love now to hear, if we can, from Paul Blackburn, who actually has run a successful crowdfunder recently. Paul, are you there to talk us through your experience? How are you, Paul?
Hi, Zoe. Yeah, good, thank you.
Good. So you successfully ran a crowdfunder, which is actually still live. It's always on, isn't it? So people can still donate to it if they so wish. So I'll pop the link into the chat box so people can go and check it out as well. So would you mind telling us a little bit about your project itself that was supported as well by Sport England? We can see here that they gave you the maximum £10,000 pledge, which is brilliant. And you had over, 147 supporters. That's a huge amount of supporters as well. So would you mind letting us know what your project is and why you decided to crowdfund?
So our project came about because we were having a new 3G pitch installed, which was also through various funding streams. but we had a significant increase in our the cost of the project just before we commenced it, which meant that we needed to raise funds to upgrade our floodlights, because that pot of money was effectively absorbed into the main project. So it was suggested to us that we look to approach the crowdfunding side of things to do that, both for the Sport England match funding injection and also just to kind of raise additional funds from our community network. So that's effectively why we started the crowdfunding campaign, and yeah, it was incredibly successful.
Amazing. And I saw on your page actually that, I mean, your page looks wonderful anyway, but those kind of choices of rewards, you've got everything, haven't you, there, from like nails at a nail salon through to different things from the club. Like, did you find that process quite easy going out and sourcing those rewards, or how did you go about it?
If I'm honest, I was a bit disappointed really that we didn't get more than we got. But I think that was because we were trying to rush our campaign through to get it off the ground because of the predicament we were in. So that would be one of my tips, would be to kind of set yourself a good bit of time, do a bit of research and try to get as many rewards as you can. As you said earlier, the rewards do engage your community, whether it be your direct people in and around the club or the wider community. They do grab them and engage them and get them in. And you need different values of rewards as well. You need the small rewards, whether it be, we had some for a local cafe that gives some vouchers, all the way up to the sponsorship advertising boards that we offered around the new pitch. Having a good range and a good amount of what it costs for the people to pledge to claim the reward is good as well.
Yeah, it's really good advice. And I think especially at the moment, I think a lot of people are feeling the pinch, aren't they? So being able to offer something at, really varied price points. So maybe people who don't have a huge amount to be able to pledge, but it's just that incentivizing to be able to, they feel as well like they're getting something, back in return. And that might be something as simple as a mention on social media, or you might have a list of people in the, up in the club bar, or you might have names that you want to put somewhere, and that might not cost you very much to be able to deliver, but it might make that supporter feel like they've really done something and had something in return. So it's a good idea to have a really varied amount of price points. And like you say, with corporate and sponsorship, quite often businesses do have money that they can put towards community sponsorship and things like that. So it's a really good idea. You mentioned there about the planning. It's a really good point, actually. We quite often, we recommend almost the same amount of time planning your crowdfunder as running it. So it's a good idea to have a bit of an idea of a time frame in place as to when you want this project to kind of come to fruition, or when you need the money by. So if you've got maybe a 4 to 5 week crowdfunder, really you need about 4 to 5 weeks of that planning side of things as well, which can be quite difficult if you need that. You need to launch your crowdfunder quite quickly. So maybe off the back of this, those that are attending, just keep that in mind, that you might want to just put a little bit of additional time from what you maybe first thought into the planning stages. Apart from that kind of lack of time in the first instance, was there anything that you found difficult about crowdfunding, or surprisingly rewarding maybe as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest bit is getting started, if I'm honest. I think once you kind of actually physically make a start, and for that I would recommend looking at other campaigns that have been run, and you get loads of inspiration and tips. I found those incredibly helpful, but once you're actually up and running, you kind of, it just follows, and it naturally comes together really. Yeah, it's incredibly rewarding. You get a lot of exposure. You're reaching out to people you've never touched before. You certainly, hopefully on the back of this, we'll increase our membership base and get people involved. We're a club, we're a junior club, so we look for children from age 5 to 16. We're hoping that people who've never played the sport will get involved. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's fantastic. It is very rewarding. Yeah, certainly when you hit your targets. And that's another thing I would say really is, it's quite daunting really you think, are we ever going to hit this huge target? But you've got to set yourself milestones along the way, and it's good how the project works, that once you get to 25%, Sport England, if you've done the match funding opportunity, once that extra amount gets pledged, I mean, it's just significant, and your audience want you to reach your targets, so kind of celebrate the targets along the way and stuff, I would say, and keep them engaged as best you can.
That's really, really good advice. And you're right, it can be daunting, but you guys actually surpassed your initial target, didn't you? You're actually into a stretch target now, which is really exciting. So what we encourage projects to do is have an initial target in place, which is kind of the minimum that they need to make happen, basically. So think realistically about the amount of money you need to actually deliver your project. But then we allow you to continue to crowdfund while you're live, and you can go above and beyond that target into something we call a stretch target. So you can break it down a little bit and make sure it's maybe more manageable for your crowd around you as well to actually get behind. Another thing which you mentioned, which we see a lot actually, is the added benefits to crowdfunding. So you mentioned maybe more people coming to the sport, maybe more club members joining, and that's something we see quite often. So crowdfunding has lots of added benefits, doesn't it? Just the financial raise, obviously, is why you're all here, and that potential funding from Sport England. But also don't discount things like building that awareness about the club and what you guys are doing, increased memberships that might come off the back of it as well. So it's a really great way of developing those lasting partnerships with your community and also bring more people back to the sport. It's a really exciting thing to do in terms of promotion for sports clubs. You mentioned keeping in touch there, which is really brilliant, and you can post updates to your supporters, and you guys were great at this. And so you can post an update to your page, and that will automatically be sent out to anybody that's agreed when they've pledged to you to hear from you. So you can bring your supporters along for the ride as well, and it will show on your page. So celebrate those milestones, let them know what you're doing offline, especially if you get that extra funding pledges, you know, shout about it when it drops onto your page, and it does rally the crowd, doesn't it? And kind of incentivize them to get behind you as well. It's a really lovely tool to use. I just want to check to see if we've got any questions coming in for you specifically, Paul, at the moment. We have got a nice amount of time for a Q&A afterwards. I can't see anything right this moment. So would you have any takeaway piece of advice that you think would be great for people that might be thinking about crowdfunding, a little bit unsure, but have joined us today?
Yeah, just like I said, give a good bit of time for your planning. Certainly do some research of other campaigns. You know, you can pinch ideas, you can pinch text. It just gets you on the right path. Nadine was very helpful as well and supportive in the background and pointers and ideas, and that's all you need sometimes, just to kind of build your campaign up. Good selection of rewards. I mean, for us, one of the really big rewards for us was the sponsorship packages for the advertising boards around the new pitch, which they're more pitch related, but they've given us the opportunity to raise funds for our floodlight campaign. So any high value rewards you can tap into are great. The prize draws, they're very effective. If they're low value, you know, people think, oh yeah, you know, I'll put a few pounds towards that in the hope they might win something that's of a higher value. So again, yeah, it's great. And another strong thing that, again, we didn't get time to do, which I think would have been fantastic, is get you, like you said about the your multiplier effect. Whether you use the multiplier effect, I mean, I didn't research it enough, but even getting your teams to just do their own fundraising in and around the club, and then just feed that in as a one-off donation for each team into the campaign. And again, that can kind of significantly increase your target and hopefully get you to where you need to be.
Amazing, thank you. Would you mind hanging on, Paul, and we'll jump into a Q&A and see if there's anybody that's got some questions for you, and also we'll welcome back Nadine as well. But well done on such a successful crowdfunder. It really is a massive achievement. You've done incredibly well.
Great, thanks.
Hi Nadine, welcome back.
Hi Zoe.
Thank you for hanging on in there. Let me just jump through and see if we've got any questions. I think we've had a few come in while we were talking. Okay, so we've got one come in. Mission that helped to complete. Okay, sorry, bear with me. We are just about to receive some funding from our local council towards our project. Should we ask them to hold off and contribute to a crowdfunder? What's your take from Sport England in terms of extra funding?
So we do allow extra funding. We would always say discuss it with us first, so we can have a look at the situation. But ultimately, support from your local council is fantastic, and it can actually act as an incentive or morale boost amongst your crowds to get you to your target. So it definitely is a positive thing, but do discuss it with us first, and there are still a minimum number of supporters required to reach as well. So
perfect, thank you for that one. We are proposing to offer a limited number of inflation busting advanced memberships over 2 or 3 years. Is this okay? So in terms of a reward, we have seen, haven't we, people offer memberships as reward, and of course that's absolutely fine, but we do encourage you to just have a nice broad spectrum of rewards as well as club membership. Would you agree, Nadine?
Absolutely. Membership rewards can be really good at engaging your existing membership. Perhaps if you offer it through the crowdfund, it could be discounted, so there's that incentive for your members, but it's definitely worth having a range, as you say, Zoe, to attract further support beyond your members.
Wonderful. Just asking here, just a little bit more explanation, about how the rewards work. For example, if a local company offers a product or service, how does our club gain from this? Okay, so the idea would be, let's take the example of, Paul mentioned some cafe vouchers there. So the cafe would agree to gift the club, maybe, let's say, a meal for two to the value of £40, let's say. So you are going to then create a reward that sits on your page, and you're going to list that reward as maybe £30. So actually you're already incentivizing it for people to claim on, because it's £10 less than what they would get from the high street cafe itself. People would then claim that reward from your page. It might be that you only have one available, and that's absolutely fine. They would donate or pledge, that amount of money when claiming the reward to your crowdfunder. So you receive the £30 towards your crowdfunder. The supporter receives a voucher to the value of £40 to go and spend in the high street cafe. So it's a way that you're actually giving something back to people for their contribution to your crowdfunder. So these rewards are only available during the duration of your live crowdfunder. You want to keep them as varied as possible, and you want it to, if possible, have them gifted to you, so you're not having a financial outlay. It might be that you have some merchandise for the club, for example. You might have, I don't know, mugs, pin badges, whatever it might be that you already have in existence that you might want to put up there as well. There's lots of different things that you can offer as rewards, but ultimately the money that people are pledging onto these rewards goes into your crowdfunder, so your fundraising. I hope that's made it clearer. Do either of you have a take on that, or do you think that's covered it?
That was one of the things that I couldn't get my head around at first, because you've got to approach it that you're getting these rewards, as you said, gifted to you, but then you're effectively offering them for less than the value. And you kind of think, well, I don't understand that. Why would we do that? But the idea is that you, as you said, you're trying to encourage people to donate to your page by getting something for less than they would pay for it if they actually went to the shop or the establishment themselves. So the more of those you can get that are of a lower value, that are kind of affordable and are going to make an impact, then that would certainly help your page, definitely. Which is why I don't think we had enough time. And if we had more time, we would have got a lot more of those, definitely.
And I think as well, again, the current kind of climate, but generally lots of local businesses or members of the community even, it doesn't have to be, your high street business. It could be that some of your club members have got a business or a skill that they're willing to share. We've also had clubs, do car washes and things like that, but people purchase a ticket for that via the crowdfunder, or even events that you might be doing at the club. Create a ticket as a reward, and then those people that have purchased those tickets via your live crowdfunder will come along, and you'll have access to all of the details for people that have claimed those rewards. So you'll be able to contact them and deliver them however you need to. One good example of a sports club that did some really interesting rewards, things that you might not have thought of, is we had a local garage who gifted an MOT. And so they were able to put it at quite a low price on their crowdfunding campaign, which actually was really useful to people that need to MOT their car. So think about what people might be needing to buy and purchase anyway at the moment. Experiences that can be quite unique that you might be able to offer that people can't necessarily get all the time from the club. So that might be a special event. a one-off event, or specialized coaching, for example, that you might not always offer. So people feel a little bit special for the things that they're claiming on. Give them that kind of VIP incentivized treatment wherever you can. But products and services at the moment, I think, will be a really good thing, especially if you can think of things that people might need in their day-to-day life as well. Okay, so hopefully that's helped, Glenn. Let us know if you need any more clarification on that one. Okay, so this is for you, Paul. This is from Wayne. How did you manage the crowdfunding from a time perspective? So how long did you take to kind of plan and then run it, and how long was your live campaign?
The campaign itself was 6 weeks. Planning it, we probably took 4 to 6 weeks, but I would have rather have spent a little bit more time within that period, but just time didn't permit it for myself. But I think the advice is the same amount of time to plan for the length of your project. So I think 6 weeks is probably enough. You can make some preliminary kind of inquiries prior to that, certainly on the reward front, and certainly on any teams within your club who you want to do some fundraising on your behalf, to give them time to kind of set their own little fundraising ideas up. So yeah, I think 6 weeks and 6 weeks it worked well for us anyway. And then as the campaign was running live, you feel like you're bombarding the social media sometimes with the same information, and that's kind of quite difficult. Try and make your posts really punchy, as you said, pictures and videos. Try and get the message a little bit different each time. Keep your crowd aware as to where you're up to, and maybe try and promote different rewards on each post to try and engage them on that particular reward. Ultimately, trying to help your community as well. Those who've kind of gifted the rewards, you're trying to give a bit back to them. So it's a bit of a mutual benefit, I guess, really.
Absolutely. And that kind of cross promotion works really well, especially if you've got local businesses that are gifting you those rewards. Shout about them on your social media, and in turn they should hopefully do the same, because it benefits them to let people know they've supported you with this wonderful reward. Keeping that content varied is key, isn't it, Paul? People will tune off from the crowdfunding message if it's just repeated over and over. So do try and keep your social media, especially that promotion, nice and varied. If you've got things going on with the club outside of the crowdfunder, shout about that and make sure you include a link to your crowdfunder with all of those different posts. You don't have to be talking about crowdfunding to engage people and bring them over to your crowdfunding page. That's quite good advice as well. One thing I should say, and you probably experienced this, Paul, as well yourself, is at the beginning of your crowdfunder, people get all excited and they pledge. And then you do naturally experience a bit of a lull in the middle, and then it normally ramps up towards the end when people can see that there's a closing date. They want to get you over the finish line. Did you experience that as well?
Definitely. It was, I got a real lull after 30 odd supporters, and I just thought, where's it going this? We're not getting anywhere. And then we rallied a bit on the social media and just word of mouth around the club, and literally those numbers doubled within a week. Again, it's a good idea to get, before you go, or as soon as you go live, before you promote it on the social media, get people to do bits of donations. So you've got a bit of a starting point you're not starting with zero when you first push it out there. And again, set yourself little mini targets along the way, like I said, really. So, for us, our first milestone was 5,000. Then we got the 10K pledge, and then we had to hit 20 to kind of ensure we got all the money. But your supporters are just as important, because you need to make sure you get minimum amount of supporters. So the two go hand in hand, really. And it's just trying to work with that and engage people as best you can, I think, really.
Definitely. And queuing up those kind of secured pledges from those around you, and that might be friends and family and team or club members. You almost have a bit of a soft launch, don't you? And you just kind of say, look, we're going live on this date. Let me rely on you, please, to come and donate. And you go back out to them and you share the project link with them and you bring them all over. They donate on your page. So by the time you start building your audience and promoting your crowdfunder, you already look as though you've got support. It's looking like it's on the right track. What you don't want to do is shout about your crowdfunder with 0% raised and no supporters, because people just don't want to get behind that. They don't want to be the first people to support you, and they want to see that it's going somewhere. So make sure you do secure some pledges ahead of time. Know where those first kind of 20 pledges or 25 supporters are going to come from, which will really help you to build that first milestone. And don't be afraid of that lull. It's natural. Have a marketing plan in place so you know you're going to drip feed some rewards onto your page and shout about it, or you might have an event coming up in that time that you can utilize for fundraising and for content, for promotion as well. Be mindful of it and just really try and be reactive if that happens, and keep that momentum up. But securing the extra funding will help with that, because it becomes a really good catalyst, doesn't it, to go back out to people. That's really good advice. Thanks, Paul. Okay, a little bit more information. Let me just see. What's the minimum number of supporters needed? And is there a minimum donation amount per supporter? So the minimum donation amount on Crowdfunder is £1. So really you can rally up a large amount of supporters with a minimal donation amount. You know, it's a great idea to just go out to people with a small pledge amount and say, even if you can just put a few pounds onto this crowdfunder, it's going to help my supporter numbers. Generally, the minimum supporter numbers for Sport England extra funding is 25. That does rise, doesn't it, depending on what the overall initial target is. So please do take a look at the extra funding page. All the information's on there, and I'll share that link in a follow-up email for you as well. But it will depend on the target, and you guys, when you approve a project, you send through all that information, don't you, all those milestones to the projects, which is really useful, Nadine. One thing I should mention, which might be worth covering as well, is if people do apply and they're not approved, what's the process there if they get declined by Sport England?
So usually we would send you. Oh, can you hear me?
You're back.
Good. So usually we would send you some feedback, encouraging you on the areas that you need to improve. And once you've gone away and actioned all of that feedback, it is possible for us to re-review your campaign. There's no need to apply again. Just send your project manager an email and the team can take a look at the improvements that you've made. So definitely worth doing if you have been declined before.
Amazing. Thanks, Nadine. This one is for you, Paul, from Johnny, regarding the advertising boards that you mentioned, so that kind of corporate sponsorship. Did the companies pay for the creation of those in addition to the amount donated, or did you kind of absorb that within the amount of the reward?
Yeah, we absorbed it. I think you want to make it as easy as possible for people. So we made inquiries initially. What would it cost us for the board and the printing on the board? And then we built that into the cost. It was funny as well. We set ours at £300 for the advertising boards, and I know people set them at different amounts, but we had them at 500. And literally the day before we went live, we had a complete rethink, and we wanted to make them as affordable and to try and tap into a wider market as we could. And as a result, we've got some companies doing 2, 3 and 4 because of the affordability. And not only that, we've got the people who might have thought, well, £500 too much for us to put in. They feel a bit more comfortable with 300. So you just got to think about where you set that. But certainly we thought it was best to absorb the cost, just so that it's just easy for your supporters then, really.
It's a really good idea. I think wherever you can, absorb those costs into either the cost of the reward, so people that are pledging are kind of covering all of those costs. The other thing as well to bear in mind is when setting your target, potentially maybe up that by a few percent, maybe 5 or 7% on top of your initial target to absorb any of those fees for maybe delivering those rewards out to people. You might have things you might need to post, or time spent creating the crowdfunder. Try and absorb as many of those things as possible within, the amount that you're fundraising, so that you don't come away with it any less than you were hoping for. So be a little bit savvy about your target and the cost of those rewards as well. One here from Graham: have any tennis clubs or county associations used crowdfunding? Tennis clubs, absolutely. We've had some successfully supported, haven't we, tennis clubs through Sport England. The best thing I would suggest is have a look on our website. use the explore function, which is on the main page right at the top there. You can search for projects via keywords or location or by category. Alternatively, have a look at those extra funding pages that I've shared. At the bottom of all of those, you will see all of the projects that have been successfully supported by our funding partners. So you'll be able to see what type of project, what type of content works in terms of being approved. One thing I should just say there as well, I think you'll agree, Nadine, when putting those pages together, and obviously make it clear in the applications, you do need to have reference to the relevance to the funds, don't you, on those pages. So if you've applied for the Active Together Fund, you need to make reference to why the club has been impacted by either the lasting impact of COVID, or especially at the moment, we've got the cost of living crisis. How is that affecting your club? And how is the money raised going to be able to tackle that? And then when it comes to places and spaces, you do need to have a section of your page that actually is related to the legacy of Birmingham 2022. So you need to have reference to the Commonwealth Games legacy on the page itself, just to make sure you are getting that kind of straightforward approval for those funds. Is there anything you needed to add on top of that, Nadine, for those two bits?
No, perfectly said, Zoe. And as you said, check both pages, both are Active Together and Places and Spaces, for inspiration on how to write your 2 paragraphs linking your projects to those funds.
Amazing, thank you very much. And we should probably say as well that you can't receive both pots of money, can you? It will be one or the other.
Exactly.
So regardless of which one you apply for, the amazing team at Sport England will put you into the right kind of application, won't you? If they've accidentally applied for the wrong one and there's not much relevance, you're pretty good at kind of shifting them over and then getting in contact. So do apply, but you can only choose one of those 2 funds to apply for.
Yeah.
Okay, this one through from Elizabeth, sorry. If you do multiply the different teams, would you have the same bank account? How does that work with single account criteria? Okay, so in terms of multiplying your project, everybody that's setting up a fundraiser, they don't input any of their bank account details or anything like that. It's all funneled directly to your main crowdfunding page, and all of that money that's raised is held in a holding account, which is Stripe, which is our third-party payment provider. And then on the close of your successful crowdfunder, all of the money raised from your own project page, as well as all of those individual fundraisers, will be paid out to the nominated bank account. So it's only ever that one bank account that's set up with the initial project. You don't need to worry about those individual fundraisers needing to upload any bank account information or anything like that. It's all centralized with you and your main project. I hope that has answered that one for you. We've got a few more to get through. I'm hoping to get through all these by one. We'll see if we can actually keep it within the hour today. Okay, so question again from Elizabeth. Can you set up gift aid? Absolutely. If your organisation is eligible for gift aid, when setting up your project, you will be prompted to tick a box that allows your project to accrue gift aid. You can attach that to rewards as well if you want to, and it will show on your project page your target raised and then also the additional gift aid that you would be eligible for. You do then need to either do one of 2 things: manually claim your gift aid via HMRC yourself as an organisation. You'll be given the option to download all of your gift aid details that you will need in order to do that at the close of your crowdfunder. Alternatively, you can opt for a fee-paying service, which we now offer. So you need to pay a fee, but we've partnered with Swift Aid so that you can actually process that gift aid via the crowdfunder itself, and that would be paid out via the crowdfunding process after the close of your successful crowdfunder. So absolutely you can. You need to make sure, obviously, that you are eligible. It might be a conversation with your club accountant in terms of the kind of things that you can attach gift aid to when it comes to your rewards, because I know that there's certain requirements when it comes to amounts of money versus benefits and things like that. So just look into it a little bit, but yes, you can, is the short answer. Okay, so question from Leigh, just wondering about contacting to discuss any particular project. So by all means, contact the team at Sport England. We've got their general email contact address on the slide there, and we will also make sure you will have access to that in a follow-up email. Alternatively, you can pop along to one of our drop-in sessions. We have loads of support on hand. We run those weekly, and again, I'll share those details for you, or drop an email to our support team, which is support@crowdfunder.co.uk. All of these links and a replay to this whole session will be sent round to you in a follow-up email in the next kind of coming days. So do keep an eye out for that. But you'll have access to all of the resources we've spoken about and ways in which you can contact relevant people as well. A message from Jan. We're a cycling organisation aiming to support schools, workplaces, community developed cycling, self-employed bikeability instructors, mechanics, but with charitable aims. Would Sport England support core costs of the organisation, i.e. staff payments of development, worker admins, support, IT? It might be a British cycling one, first and foremost. Would you agree, Nadine? But I think it's going to come down to the structure of the organisation itself. It sounds like they might be freelance or sole traders, which might be a slightly different kettle of fish. I'd let you take that one.
Yeah, I would encourage you to email us at the email address below, Jan, so we can discuss the specifics of your inquiry further. But providing that the project was the costs that you're looking to be supported, if you are eligible, providing they are relating to the focus of our fund, so cost of living and energy, it's possible that we could look at covering costs relating to things like increased equipment costs or increased venue hire and the costs related to that. So there are things that we could potentially fund, but as I said, send us an email and we can discuss your inquiry further.
Amazing, thank you. Johnny's asking here about, so just so it's clear, if somebody donates £100, how much of that goes to cover your platform fees? So when it comes to fees that Crowdfunder will charge you, it's very much based on your organisational structure. So there, again, I'll share the fee table in the follow-up email, but essentially if you're a not-for-profit organisation, so if you're a CIC, if you're a voluntary sports club, for example, which you would need to be all of these things in order to be approved for the extra funding, then you wouldn't be subject to any platform fees. It would be a 0% platform fee, which means that your only fees incurred by using Crowdfunder would be transaction fees. Every single project is subject to transaction fees. That's because we use a third-party transaction provider, as I've mentioned, so those costs are passed across to the project. You may find that dependent on the extra funding that you've been approved for, I know there's a zero fee, isn't there, for Sport England. However, some of our extra funding partners do have a fee associated with the pledge as well. So do make sure that you're checking the pledge criteria when you've been approved for, or you're checking the T's and C's when you're actually looking into those funds. But in terms of being a not-for-profit or a charity, CIC, for example, voluntary organisation, you would be set on the 0% platform fee. So out of that £100, nothing would be taken for platform fees. Okay, we're getting there, guys. Hi, do we need to be a sports club to apply? We're a community interest company running family skipping courses and family walking groups. Could we apply, Nadine?
So again,
depending on you. Sorry, did you need me to repeat, or have you got it?
Oh no, I'm good, Zoe. Thank you. Depending on your, your company setup and providing you're eligible, that is something that you could potentially apply for. Sounds like it'd be more suitable for our Active Together Fund than our Places and Spaces, as it's not capital. But if you did want to send us an email, we could discuss it further there as well.
Amazing, thank you so much. And the last question here from Sue was just, again, reiterating about those platform fees. So as long as your organisation is set up in such a way that it's not for profit, then you wouldn't be subject to platform fees. By platform fees, we're talking about all of those resources that you have access to, but also hosting your project as well on the platform. All projects are subject to transaction fees. You'll see I've put a link here into the chat box with the fee table, our help centre, which is really useful for any of those questions that you might have. the Knowledge Hub, which has got loads of brilliant articles for every different stage of your crowdfunder, and those drop-ins and those future webinars that I've mentioned as well. There's loads of support to help you to not only launch your crowdfunder, but be successful and get approved for that extra funding as well. So please do utilise them wherever possible. Make use of that Learn platform as well. It will really give you the information that you need to get started. If you have any questions regarding to the funds itself, please do contact Sport England. If you need to contact ourselves, I'll just put the email address in here for you. It's support@crowdfunder.co.uk, and your email will be fielded to the relevant person. But we've done it. Oh, we're 1 minute over. We almost did it. But thank you so much to Paul and to Nadine for joining us today. I just want to let everyone know about those next steps as well. So do go and use the Learn platform. Check for any extra funding you might be eligible for from Sport England, but also local authorities possibly as well. Maybe some of our national partners too. And then explore other projects that come before you and get some inspiration. But it was brilliant to have you all here today. Hopefully you've got a lot of food for thought and feel inspired to go and start your crowdfunding journeys. And thank you to Paul, thank you to Nadine for joining me, and good luck with launching your crowdfunders. Thank you very much.